Good afternoon, everyone. Welcome to Preservation Connecticut's Fall 2022 series, talking about preservation, our noontime chats about everything preservation. I'm Jane Montanaro, Executive Director of Preservation Connecticut, and I'm pleased to be your host. Today, we're chatting about bringing back the trades with Mason Lord of Hudson Valley Preservation and its Touch a Trade initiative. But before we get to Mason, let me give you a brief intro into Preservation Connecticut. Preservation Connecticut is the statewide private nonprofit historic preservation organization founded in 1975 by a special act of the Connecticut General Assembly as the Connecticut Trust for Historic Preservation to preserve, protect, and promote the building sites and landscapes that contribute to the heritage and vitality of Connecticut's communities. We are statutory partners with the Connecticut State Historic Preservation Office, and I am proud to say that for more than 4 decades, we have successfully championed the protection of remarkable community assets all over the state by leveraging funding, advocating, forming partnerships, and promoting stewardship. Our office is on Whitney Avenue in Hamden, Connecticut. It's listed on the National Register of Historic Places. Shown here, it's the Eli Whitney boarding house, built in 1827 to house workers for Eli Whitney's gun factory. And it's served as Preservation Connecticut's headquarters since 1989. We have a staff of 9 preservation professionals and a board of 21 preservationists from around the state. Staff listed here are always available to assist with inquiries. Christopher Wiegren, our Deputy Director. Contact Chris for information on historic preservation easements, our bi-monthly magazine, Connecticut Preservation News, our Olmsted in Connecticut Landscape Survey Project, and to arrange book talks for his book, Connecticut Architecture, Stories of 100 Places. Renee Trubert is our Making Places and Preservation Services Manager. Please contact Renee for information on redevelopment of historic industrial sites and tax credit applications. Jordan Sorensen is Development and Special Projects Manager. Jordan manages our communications and outreach to members through social media and email, receives and monitors demolition notices from municipalities, and prepares historic tax credit applications and nominations to the State and National Register of Historic Places. Kristen Hopewood, Development Assistant, manages all of the inquiries that come through our website, provides member services, arranges special events, and is the editor of our Historic Properties Exchange, a free listing of threatened historic properties. And finally, our team of circuit riders, Brad Scheid, Mike Farino, Stacy Vero, and Stefan Chuk. They provide immediate boots-on-the-ground service to homeowners, developers, municipal leaders, nonprofit organizations, museums, historic district commissions, and more, with an array of preservation technical assistance, including community organizing, prioritizing maintenance and repairs, historic designations, funding, and archaeology. These chats have served as a meaningful way for us to continue our mission during the pandemic. We've been able to connect with the public and hear what's on your mind. Please feel free to use the chat feature to ask questions directly at the end of the presentation, or contact us afterwards for a site visit or a call. A quick sneak peek for next week's program. Pete Harrison from Desegregate Connecticut will join us to talk about ways in which historic preservation and affordable housing work well together. But now, without further delay, I'm pleased to welcome Mason, and I will let Mason put up his screen to share with you. Welcome, Mason.
Thank you. I'm pleased to be here to talk about Touch a Trade. And is everybody seeing my screen?
Yes, perfect.
Good. So for those of you who aren't aware of this, I'm going to give an introduction and talk about our day. And on October 22nd, at the Connecticut Antique Machinery Association and the Eric Sloan Museum in Kent, Connecticut, we had a day of bringing visitors in to touch a trade. And we had a very good day. you can see on the signs that we had a number of sponsors, including Preservation Connecticut, which was really, really great. So thank you very much. What were the goals? Well, I've been thinking about doing something like this for quite a few years. And what I feel has been missing over the years is that since shop programs, industrial arts have been cut out from our schools, that young people do not get a chance to experience working with their hands. And I know for myself, I was very lucky because I went to a school that had a very good industrial arts program that I started with in middle school and then in high school. And that gave me that spark. I was using my hands with tools and I made stuff and it felt really good. And so what we wanted to do was to give at least a little bit of that to young people and old people. The goal wasn't just for young people to attend, and older people could do the same. So what we did is we decided we wanted to have an event that was free. We didn't want to limit the attendance to people that could afford to come. And we had to collect volunteers. We had to do marketing. We also had to come up with some sponsors. We had to raise some money. And we really had a lot of people come together. And we also had, very importantly, the weather cooperate on the 22nd of October. We weren't sure how many people were going to show up. We expected between 100 and 500. We were a little bit nervous that if we got 500 people that we would be overwhelmed. But as it turned out, we had 500 people and we were not overwhelmed. How did we promote this event? A lot of it was just putting things out, social media. We had flyers, things that we could put on, tack up on different signs at different places. Social media was a big piece of the picture as well. We had a social media person who posted frequently. We also felt that this year for the first event that it was important to really get the word out. And that's why we gave away free t-shirts. And we had bracelets. Bracelets were for, we had blue bracelets and orange bracelets. And the orange bracelets were for children under 7. The blue bracelets were for people older than that. And what that did was it gave us a way to know whether people had actually gone through the registration tent, because we wanted to make sure they went through the tent, that they got a safety talk and were registered. We had everybody sign a waiver form. We also had a scribble art workshop that helped with the younger people. And I don't know how many people are familiar with Tom Bodette. I'm guessing that most of the people here have heard of Tom, but if you haven't, Tom was very famous for his Motel 6 commercial, but also he's a storyteller. He was, in his early career, he built houses in Alaska.
Hi, Tom Bodette here for Touch of Trade. You know, before you can leave the light on for your family and friends, you should learn how to wire a lamp. So come see us. We can build a deck together, install a window, install some tile, learn how to do plumbing, all kinds of trade and craft. Look forward to seeing you there. And we'll leave the light on for you.
So Tom was the host of our event, and Tom's has a business, I guess you could call it a business. It's a nonprofit in Brattleboro, Vermont, and it's called Hatch Space. And it is a woodworking maker space. And Hatch Space acted as our 501c3 so that we could have our donations be tax deductible. And they were a great partnership. And when I spoke to Tom months ahead of time, I was going to ask him to come and be there. I didn't have to ask. He volunteered without me saying a thing. So at the Connecticut Antique Machinery Association, we had a number of different trades. We had 25 presenters. Let's see, do I have? And we were hoping to have a welder, and a welder canceled out practically the day beforehand, and it was due to family issues. We ended up having some people have to cancel out because of COVID, as well as, again, some more family issues. This was at the event, and again, one of the things that we were promoting, that a lot of people get into the trades, and it's not necessarily because they grew up thinking, I want to be a carpenter or I want to be an electrician. But what happens is they do gain a skill that lasts a lifetime. At the Eric Sloan Museum, we had what we were calling more the quieter trades. And the State Historic Preservation Office had a table there, and they also did paints and preservation. Andrew Rowand, who is the curator director of the Sloan Museum, was really on board with this. And he's a shoemaker also, so he was demonstrating making shoes. Block printing, quilts and quilting. The Kent Quilters Association attended. And so here is a picture of one of the young attendees with a loom. And the sign on the left is from the Sloan Museum. And well, I was talking to Jane earlier about her father's hand-carved sign business, and I have to say I would love if the Sloan family would allow permission to have this is one of Eric Sloan's paintings from the museum, but I think it would be great to have that as a banner for one of our future events. Again, the loom work at the Sloan Museum. This is the historic paint table. Unfortunately, I did not get over to the Sloan Museum and see what was going on because I was tied up at the Machinery Association. So this, I'm not sure how many people on this have visited the Connecticut Antique Machinery Association, but it was a fabulous place to have our event. The CAMA has a fall festival every year where there are steam machines. In the very far background, that is a sawmill. They had their sawmill going. They had a shingle mill going. The tent there in the middle was our music tent. So we had music playing throughout the day, a couple of acoustic guitar players singing and playing. We had signage for each of the groupings. So very far in the rear there, we had more of the hand tool type crafts. And we had the more rough carpentry, laying out a deck, framing carpentry. We had a tile contractor. You'll see some more of this as I continue. And I have to say, this is one of my favorite pictures from the event. I love this. This little girl here, who I'm guessing is 10 years old, she was so engaged. She was there for about 3 hours. She went around to every single booth and participated. She's wearing a Touch of Trade t-shirt, but she's got a pink skirt, pink tights, and pink shoes, and she is just loving it. Look at the concentration on on her face. This quote, "This kind of a thing could change a kid's life," came from, so at the same time that the event was going on, the mining museum, which is at the same site, had a program going on. And so we ended up getting a few of the visitors who had come to attend the mining museum, but they didn't know what Touch of Trade was. So they would come and I would ask them if they wanted to go in. And when they found out it was free, there was no reason not to. And a lot of the people were on the older side. And I would say, go in, and when you come out, please give me your feedback. And this was one of those older gentlemen who came through the event, and he was a little grumpy, but this is what he said to me, and that was his takeaway. One of the companies we had was a well drilling company, and I don't know, this is an aquifer demonstration here. And again, I didn't have time to go around and find out more about it, but I know this is one of the most popular, we called it experiences because, as I mentioned before, hands-on with tools, making or fixing something. And they're doing that here. We had 2 electricians. You can see that the presenters really took this seriously. They built, planned. This is Mark Audette, who's an electrician in Sherman. Behind him is Chris Harrington, who's an electrician in Kent. We also had presenters come from Boone, North Carolina. We had several come from the Boston area. So people traveled for this. They really took it seriously. And the feedback I got on the presenters was that they were all very engaged. They were very excited to be a part of this. And they really had a good time. And as you see in the quote on the left, we're going to have, I'm sure people are very aware of this right now, but we have problems with getting tradespeople. My company is a general contracting firm, and so we use a lot of different sub-trades, and our problems are because they're so overwhelmed with all the work they have. And what I find with trade partners that we work with is they're people pleasers, and they have a hard time saying no. And so they take on too much work. We need to get more young people into the trade so that we can service our clients. And people get frustrated, they get upset. This guy didn't call me back. He came out, he looked at my work. I feel like there should be more patience. I know it's frustrating for people. However, what I find is that these people are doing the best they can, and they do need some patience. I would say that my biggest takeaway for this event was the age group of the attendees. I expected the age group to be more like 12 to 15, But what we found is that it was more like 5 to 12. And I mean, here is, I'm not sure how old this little boy is, but I'm guessing he's 6 or 7 years old, using a power tool. We had 5-year-olds using power tools and nobody got hurt. I think ahead of the event, this was something we learned, was that we can teach young people who have no experience with tools, power tools, to use them. One of the missions of Touch a Trade is to get more diversity into the trades. And living in the northwest corner of Connecticut, we are very white, we are very male. And this picture shows the presenter in the back is Freddie Roman, who grew up in East Hartford, Connecticut, in the ghetto, as he described it. And he came down from Boston, where he lives now. He's a very talented carpenter, craftsman, and really an unusual person in that he is a restoration craftsman who is Spanish speaking from basically the projects. And women in the trades, we have a carpenter in my company who is a woman. She, at 48 years old, she was in the office, she said, I want to do some carpentry work, can I do it? And now she is working with her hands in the field as a carpenter. Kids having a good time. We had I think if you give a young person a hammer and some nails, they might spend all afternoon just banging nails into a piece of wood. In the back there, you can see a big dump truck that was O&G Industries supplied that. They also supplied squishy bulldozers and cement trucks, little pieces of swag for the kids to take with them.
How's that? Kind of right in the middle here? Looks good. I agree. So you're going to take this. Are you right-handed? Okay. So there's a little wheel that scores the top of the tile. So you're going to push down a little bit and just go all the way through. Push it to the end here. Okay. You got to left that line right there. And you come back right here and just push straight down with them. There you go.
There you go.
You got it. You already cut the tile. You're good. So let's take this piece and fill.
That is Jeremy Malkins from New Haven, Jeremy has 5 kids who are little, I don't know how exactly their age, but I think they're all under 10 years old. And he came up here, and I don't think he's ever taught before, but just watching that video of him taking that young man to show him, it was like he's been a pro and has done this many times. Here's a little more of his setup and booth. I can't say enough about the presenters that were there and how good they were with the young people. This is more of our fine carpentry, not fine carpentry, the rough carpentry. This is Chris Tolley, who came from Winstead. He's a framing contractor, and he's teaching using a framing square to lay out rafters and stairs. So more advanced carpentry work where you use math to do your work. We also had a guy who laid out a deck, and he was teaching people how to square things up. So using geometry to figure out how square you've made your deck. We also had an arborist, and kids, this one's on a ladder right now, but kids were climbing, I want to say 20 feet up trees, and they were safely doing it. And there was a long line at this one. One of our helper volunteers pretty much didn't have a chance to go to the bathroom or get any food, because he was constantly tying kids on and off of the rappelling line. And this is one of my favorite pictures of the day. That's Nancy, who's our carpenter, and Georgia. And just looking at that little girl's face as she's engaged with Nancy, as she's teaching her something about carpentry, was just, it melts my heart. And the quote, "I hope this blossoms," that was, again, this was an older woman who came from the mining museum. And I asked her how she felt about what she'd seen, and that's what she said: "I hope this blossoms." And I wasn't quick enough or sharp enough to say something along the lines of, well, you can support this with a donation, and you can help this blossom. And this is the last slide on my presentation. This was from our website. Our website is touchatrade.org. You can learn more about us through that. You can donate with the donate button. So what's the future of Touch a Trade? We plan to have these kind of events again. We also would like to have programs throughout the year. So they wouldn't necessarily be a big event like this. It would maybe be a carpenter who has a program somewhere in the state that limited attendance. We're really trying to work on, so how do we move forward with this? We know that there is interest to have this in other communities. And right now, Touch a Trade is not an entity. And so we're going to be talking to accountants and lawyers about what's the best way to move forward as an entity. Or does Touch a Trade become a 501c3? Does my company, Hudson Valley Preservation, have a nonprofit side to the business? We're really not sure what the best approach is, but we're certainly looking for advice and thoughts on how to move forward. We would like to eventually, maybe in the next couple of years, have a summer camp. Beyond that, we would like to buy or rent a facility that we can have a training space. So similar to Hatch Space, where there are classes and people can join, we would also be offering training beyond just woodworking, but in other trades. So that's all I have, and I'm open for questions now, and I'll stop sharing.
Thank you, Mason. That was fantastic. And what a really terrific event. Thanks for sharing all the photos from the day, and 500 participants. That's an extraordinary first success.
Yeah, it really gave us the confidence that this is needed and that there are people that want something like this, and how can we capitalize on it moving forward.
Well, I'd like to open it up to the floor if anyone had questions or comments or suggestions for future programming.
I see there's a question in the chat. How did you get Tom Bodette? So I my company is members of the Timber Framers Guild. And in September of 2021, there was a program up in Brattleboro. And on Sunday of that 3-day weekend, there was a tour of Hatch Space. So Tom is one of the founders of Hatch Space. And I met Tom there and talked to him briefly about what he's doing with younger people. And one of his most popular programs, besides the women in woodworking, which is his most popular, is making skateboards. So the kids make skateboards, and like, what a great thing to have. Like, how cool is it for a kid to go to the skateboard park with a skateboard that he or she built? I mean, I just think
Yeah.
it's great. And Tom is a great guy, very humble and supportive. He's been really helpful throughout our getting this together, and that Hatch Space acted as our 501c3 was really important.
Yeah, and Preservation Connecticut was really excited to be able to help sponsor this program this year, and really looking forward to continuing to be a partner and work with the programming that you're working on for the upcoming year and another event like this. So certainly we have a lot of contacts through our work around the state to be able to bring other contractors and trades into the fold, and excited to see how you grow this, Mason, and how we can support you in your efforts.
Well, and we certainly would like to continue partnering with Preserve Connecticut. And I don't know, I'm thinking that we should have a brainstorming session. I could come over to Hamden at some point and sit down with you all and just talk about different, just brainstorm at first and see. Because I think there's a lot of opportunity here, and I think it's scalable. And really the question is, how do we manage this? I have a day job running a construction company, and I know that I could probably spend 100% of my time on Touch a Trade right now, but I can't do that. So how do we manage this going forward conservatively while taking risks at the same time? And a question or look, yes, we're certainly going to make Jack Nork's question, are we going to make this an annual event? And yes, I think we're going to at least have one of these big events a year. Whether we can manage two of them, one in the spring and one in the fall, I think that would be great if we could. It's a big amount of organization. Certainly this first one, we started, we had a brainstorming session in February with a small group of planning members, and we had our next meeting in May. And at that point we had an event coordinator volunteer to be our event planner. And that was really, really important. We also had a graphic artist who volunteered her time to help with the website and all of our signage and social media, postcards, things like that. We got our logo in July, our cards in August. So we really started, and we put this together in about 3 months. And that it went so smoothly was somewhat remarkable. But now that we've done it once, and we have somewhat of a model, I think we can pull this off a little bit more easily. But our budget for this was between 20 and 30,000. And I think and that's with, event planner volunteering or graphic artist volunteering. I think we're going to end up more like 25 to 30,000. And, food was an expense. All those t-shirts that we gave away was a big expense. Getting things printed. But I think we did pretty well with what we had.
Yeah. And congratulations on organizing such a great team of volunteers. That was really well done.
Yeah, we had about 12 people on the planning team. Fine Home Building Magazine with their Keep Craft Alive initiative. Patrick McComb, who's one of the senior editors at Fine Home Building, he was one of our early planning team members, jumped on board. I was on Fine Home Building has a Pro Talk podcast. I was on that with Patrick. And that's how I think we were able to attract some of the further away presenters. So yeah, it was, getting the planning team together and having everybody who volunteered, it was really incredible. Barbara has.
Barbara has a question. Is there a timber guild inside most of the New England states?
Well, the Timber Framers Guild is a national organization. Their home base right now is in Alstead, New Hampshire. The Timber Framers Guild just bought the Heartwood School, which is a timber framing school that was in Western Mass. The founder of that died recently, and the Timber Framers Guild has actually, before he passed away, bought the Heartwood School. The Timber Framers Guild has an annual conference all at different places around the country, and then they have different programs. I would suggest anybody that's interested to go on the Timber Framers Guild website, and they do community programs throughout the country where they'll work with local volunteers to build something for a community, a pavilion, some sort of structure that's needed for the community. They're a great organization, full of incredible craftspeople that are really passionate about their work. A few weeks ago, they had their annual conference in Burlington. And it's always a lot of fun because they're fun people.
Great. Thanks, Mason. Thanks for your question, Barbara. Did anyone else have any questions for Mason this afternoon? You did a really good job describing the whole event and your planning process and your hopes for the future. And I'm sure this is just the beginning.
Yeah, well, I certainly hope so. That's our goal, and we're very excited about it. I've been in the construction business since the early 80s, and I have to say this is one of the most exciting things that I've done. And I get excited over a lot of stuff because I work in old houses and I find cool stuff, and I'm always interested in who, how, and why they did things. And this is just something that gets me as excited as finding some old piece of wood that gives you a clue to how a house was, the history of a house. So
Great.
thank you all for
Thank you, Mason.
attending and listening.
Yeah, thanks everyone. And thank you, Mason. We'll talk again soon.
Okay. You're
Thank
welcome.
you.
All right.
Bye-bye.
Bye.